Good morning and welcome to the Zaffe Show. We're happy to be here and hope that you will join us. It's a sort of a rainy day in Maine today, but we do have a beautiful state, and every day I realize how much more beautiful it is. And now we've got the fall foliage and the festivals. And in Maine, we have a festival for everything.
We do.
We do. And what made me think about the foliage, I text my grandson in LA and asked him if he was happy and how his education was going. And he texted me back and said he was happy, but he missed the foliage in Maine. He loved the leaves. And he says, I don't know when I'll get back home, but he misses Maine, the weather. And so that I felt bad for him.
Nice. So it's the real LA, it's not Lewiston, Auburn.
No, this is Los Angeles, way over there.
Way over there.
So he can't just jump on the plane and come home. But I was surprised to hear him say that. I really, really was. So, but Maine is beautiful. The leaves are already starting to change. I don't know how they're going to be this year. I know my yard is very, very dry. We need rain for 2-3 days. It's really bad out back there.
It is dry.
But anyway, we're still lucky to be in Maine. And now I would like to introduce Alan Sicard, and he is the Register of Probate.
I'm a candidate, hopefully, for Register of Probate this November.
Okay.
Because fall is also an election season.
I know.
So thank you for having me on your show. And,
thank you for coming.
Yes, it's nice to see you again. Usually it's running into you at Shaw's or your daughter Maria. We went to school together. And
yeah.
So I like this opportunity and hopefully inform the viewers a little bit about what probate is about and what my candidacy is
like
about.
I said, I might know about children or cooking, but I don't know about probate. So it's going to be interesting.
And most people don't until they have to go through something. I explain to people it's like a family court. If you need something like a will, an adoption, a guardianship, used to be mostly children, but now even the elderly, with Alzheimer's and so forth.
And there's more of us.
Yeah, there are. We're living older, and if there's a disagreement in the family, that might have to go to the judge. The judge here in York County, which is a different position, the register in probate court. York County services all 29 towns. It's a big county, town-wise, not necessarily geography like Aroostook might be or some of the northern counties, but the judge currently has 8 court dates a month in Maine to see those contested things. 1,200 cases a year in Alfred in probate. Most are uncontested wills, but things like name changes, things like involuntary commitments if some people are having mental issues and mental health issues and can't see it for themselves to get help. So that's where probate court comes in.
Now, why would having a will or a trust, how does that affect probate?
Probate is the, I guess you could call it the last stop. So if you or I pass away and we have a will, it has to go through probate for a couple of reasons. One, to make sure that the assets you might have accumulated over your life are taken care of, put to your wishes for children or grandchildren or whatever. But also if there are other people that you might have owed money to, and maybe it wasn't properly documented that your children or grandchildren knew about it, and this person still wants to get paid, so they have the opportunity in probate to, that's why you see those sometimes the advertisements in the newspapers and other documentation to try to find people to let them know somebody has passed, and we're holding it up to make sure that it's taken care of. And most of those, the 1,200 cases a year and 600 carryover just for York County, most are uncontested wills. But sometimes, especially if there's large amounts of money involved, the family might be in dispute that, oh no, that person changed their will and they weren't of sound mind and body, they were coerced or whatever. So those would go before the judge, and the judge would hear both sides and try to make a fair determination of who was right and who was wrong. Excuse me. So not only in our case, we're voting for York County Register of Probate, which is the department head, a $600,000 budget, 6 full-time people, but also the judge position. There are 3 people, including our present judge, that are running for the position. So he would take during his 8 court dates and listen to those cases, and so. To your original question, yes, most people don't know unless something goes on in your life where you have to go through that process. But I say, it's like family court does all of those things except divorces. Divorces are still in the regular judicial system.
And how about a trust? Same thing?
They're similar, yeah. And there's more financial laws and so forth that the financial regulations and so forth. So it's very important and easy to update. You know, I'll mention to especially young couples out there, if they haven't done wills or so forth, you can either talk to an attorney, or in many cases, many of these forms are available online now, LegalZoom.com and so forth. You can get the form, and they're legit. Pay your $25, $50, whatever it may be, and file it, and you're good to go.
But when I hear those things, I shake because I don't understand them all.
Exactly. But that's what probate there is for as well, and they'll be happy to answer any questions that people may have during the process, or they work for the people of York County, so it's a resource that people can use.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
So now, I read your resume here, or part, and you're certainly qualified.
Oh, thank you.
But how did you get interested? When did you start?
Well, I've been active through my working in the media, my political and operating Rocky Coast Marketing for 16 years now, and involved over 30 years in many elections and candidates and working with candidates. And on the county level, worked Mo Willett, Bill King, who is our current sheriff, district attorney, all these positions that we vote for on a countywide basis, and had the opportunity to say, the current register has been there for 12 years. I'm of the opinion that some things can change in probate and bring it up to more of a professional status within the office, and had the opportunity to run as a Democrat. You do choose a party, and campaigned in June in the primary. It was unopposed in the primary, and now I'll be facing the incumbent this November. So the timing is right. I talked to my family, talked to my wife of 35 years, who's a local teacher, Mary. Many people might know her, Mary Sicard.
Very lovely woman. I've known her for a long time.
Thank you, Zaffi. And she's put up with me for a long
Nice
time, so
family,
she has
too.
the patience of Job. So, but she said, yes, timing is right. I've been many years behind the scene to say I could go out and make this a career move, if you will, in the coming to the tail end of my career, if you will.
Well, you know, it says here, complete Rocky Coast Marketing.
Rocky Coast Marketing is the firm I established back in 2000, and
That's quite a while ago.
exactly. Went back to school while I was working full-time at the time maintoday.com in the 90s when the web was just going. It was the online Press Herald, and my wife and I talked before the kids, they were middle school then. I said before they get up through high school and we're helping to pay for their college, I want to go back, and she supported me. I did 18 months every other weekend, and traveling from Saco to Durham, stayed at UNH Friday, Saturday, and we had classes. And best thing I've ever done professionally was to get my Master's of Business Administration, and MBA, and I think that education is important for our young people today, for our people looking for career changes or to broaden their horizons, and I think will prepare me for department head situation here, handling a budget of 600,000, 6 full-time employees, and I've managed larger offices than that. Prior to Maine Today, I was in cable ad sales and managed regional offices, had a $2 million budget and 15 people reporting to me across the state. So kind of know what it's like to get people together, get people working, and serving the people of York County, because that's what it's all about. When the property taxpayers receive their bill at home, and you have your local tax and you have your school tax, and you see that line there, the county, and you're paying for the district attorney, the jail, the sheriff, but you're also paying for the probate court and what we do there as well.
Do you have things changed?
Oh my goodness. When I started back in the day, my undergraduate degrees at Boston University in broadcast journalism. This is the late 70s, and if you remember Watergate in the early 70s, and the newspaper was everything. They broke the story that forced President Nixon to resign. So young teenager caught up in that, saying, this is what I want to do. And the newspaper was king back then. That's how people got the news. There was no internet. There was radio and television, but
Poor newspapers today.
oh my goodness, and many of them are going online. But newspapers then, moved. Radio changed things there, and then television changed. And you remember, we had 6, 8, and 13, and
Yeah.
you actually had to get up off the couch
Yeah.
and change the dial and
Yeah.
spin there. And then about that same time, the late 70s, as I recall, cable came to town, and now you had all these channels from everywhere, and that came in and changed things there, and went back, and I remember moving to the internet, late 90s now, after getting out and doing radio news, doing interviews with people all across the area in various positions, various politicians and newsmakers. And then cable changed it, the internet changed it, and I remember late 90s, I was working at maintoday.com, speaking with Jolly John. And if people here in the area remember him, God rest his soul, Jolly John Pulsifer, selling cars, saying, you'll need a website, and you'll need to put your vehicles on that website. And again, this is 98, 99. The internet was just starting out. Well, I'm old school. I want people to drive here and sit in it. And I said, John, I could understand that. And he and I would tease each other. But there will come a day when people will come into your dealership and know more about the car or truck they want to buy than your salespeople, because of the internet and the research that So we went back and forth, and I remember this carrying over for probably a year or two. And then finally we got the call one day saying, yeah, I think I'm ready. But he was one of the last adopters of putting all of the vehicles on there, all the information, the pricing, and so forth. So that changed everything, and now, the same impact with social media changing. Now we've got Facebook and, Instagram and all these things. So Rocky Coast Marketing has had to evolve and offer those things as well. And who knows what the changes are going to be 5 years from now, 3 years from now. It's totally evolving. But we still can't vote online yet. They haven't figured that out. I can spend, you can make $1,000 purchase and it'll all go through. But geez, we can't figure out the security of you checking a box or me checking a box. So hopefully they'll figure that out. But in the meantime, we're asking people November 8th to get out, talk, we've got presidential, we've got local state reps and state senators. I did share with you my sheet. This is on the Facebook page if people want to print it out. It's the 5 main state ballot questions, and people have had great interest in some of the things statewide that we'll be deciding in November.
It's very interesting.
And I know you've talked about some of them already on your show.
It's very helpful, and they're all here.
Exactly. So if you're not enthralled with president or whatever and say, well, I'm just going to stay home. No, you got to get out on November 8th. We got things like marijuana, legalizing that, establish a fund to advance public education, kindergarten through grade 12. Background check for guns is a big one. Raise the minimum wage.
Especially in Maine.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's
because what's going on out there now has nothing to do why we want guns in Maine.
Exactly, and it's not just for the sportsmen. It's the background checks for private sales or even gun shows, which I know they have in Sanford, I believe, but also at the Biddeford Arena here every few months. I see the signs for a gun show. Raise the minimum wage. Everybody knows somebody that works in the service industry or in a restaurant or at Walmart or Target, and those people want living wages.
And there's always two sides.
Absolutely. And the
Always
business owners are saying, especially if there are tips involved and so forth, and ranked choice voting, which is a little more complicated, but will help eliminate, I think, this divisiveness of people attaining large statewide office without 50% of the vote. And even as a Democrat on the Democratic side, George Mitchell was the last person in Maine, last Democrat in Maine to win a statewide vote with over 50%. So, and that's a while ago. So that tells you that it's been divisive. And then we've seen, no matter which side of the spectrum you're on, we've seen how hard it is to govern when you don't have more than 30-something% that voted for you.
True.
And then, of course, we've got a bond issue. Everybody likes good highways, good bridges, and so forth, so that...
Well, I think that's important. You know what? Look at the traffic around here now.
My goodness, these
Would you
roads were
believe
never
it?
meant... Exactly. They're never meant to handle this kind of traffic. And we've ignored them. Not so much in Maine, some of the bigger cities, but there are some still around, and we have to, put in the money, even though you hate to put it into the ground. You need good roads and good bridges.
It seems like just go over to Thornton and look in the parking lots. All those kids must have cars.
They do. They have nice cars, probably nicer than what
Better
you and
than
I are
mine.
driving. Exactly.
And probably less bumps.
Exactly. So I share this again. It's on my Facebook page, Elect Alan Sicard, York County Register of Probate. So you can go on Facebook, scroll down, and you'll see that post, and you can either cut and paste or print it out. And it's also available on the Secretary of State's website as well, the exact wording, because sometimes those two little sentences don't tell you everything that the bill says. In fact, the gun one is a good example, because I've seen the other side's ads now saying, well, if I loan you my shotgun to go hunting or whatever, we've got to then go to a dealer and fill out a form from, so, and I haven't done that deep of research to say that that's the case or not. I'm sure that's probably one of those unintended consequences if it is, but, that's the type of research that we as informed citizens should do on our own to make an informed choice before we head to the polls. But it's coming. It's not that far away, and there's a little bit of something for everybody there.
It's interesting.
It is, and
We have to think about it. It's coming close now.
Exactly. And we've got local races, the state house, the state senate, the house, whether that stays in Democratic hands, the Senate, whether that changes, and then of course all the way up to the president, whether you feel it's Trump or Hillary. I feel people have died in battle for our right to elect our leaders. It's a duty. Call me old school or whatever, but I was raised that way. I've raised my kids that way.
Women fought for the right to vote. Now we're going to give it up.
That wasn't that long ago.
No.
They had to march, and they were, sprayed and told to go home, and riots of the day, or the suffrage movement, and the blacks, they had to march Martin Luther King to be recognized as full citizens with the right to vote. And this is something, Maine always prides itself with a high voter turnout. Sometimes we lead the nation, many times we do. But that high voter turnout, 65, 66%, that's 2 out of 3. That means 1 out of every 3 is sitting at home. Excuse me. To me, that's wrong. We have a moral obligation and a duty to make these decisions and to vote for our leaders.
Well, if we don't vote, we can't complain.
Exactly. It's democracy, and democracy only works when people are involved. So we get out. I think it's going to be high turnout, presidential year, these referendum questions, and hopefully, we'll get a good turnout, and it will help across the ticket all the way to the York County positions, as I mentioned, for register and also for the judge position as well, because that's important in the sense that there are 3 people running for the position, and it's a 4-year term, as is the register, and people need to make the informed choices.
I'm amazed. I've known Mary for so long in your family, but I did not know this about you.
You didn't?
No, because I wonder how many other people out there.
Probably a lot.
Because you know what? We're involved with cooking, raising a family, and you've got your husband that's doing all the thinking.
Sure.
That way.
School and sure.
Yeah. We're thinking about feeding them and clothing them.
Well,
it's interesting. It's good to know.
Women are important now with voting. I think many times, in many communities, they're a majority of the people that do get out and vote. And now,
sometimes they make the difference.
They do, and many female candidates now, all up and down the ticket, including Hillary. But we have many more state reps and state senators, and even in the 2nd District, Emily Kane is running against Bruce Poliquin. So we're encouraging women to get involved and vote, but also they're running for office, which you didn't always see. As you mentioned, they had to fight for their right to become involved.
And goodness knows what's going on in some of those countries overseas.
Absolutely. We're lucky. We're full democracy, and it works because we get to make changes. We don't like what's going on. We can vote them out, and that honestly is a major reason I'm running, is not like the way the probate court and especially the probate office has been running, and My opponent has been unopposed for 2 of her terms. Bobby Mills ran against her in 2008 and was unsuccessful, and I'm throwing my hat in and asking for the people's support to make some changes and make it totally accountable to the people of York County. Eliminate a backlog. We're currently working, I believe it's a 2 or 3 month backlog. Some of that is county funding. Some of that is what's going on in society. There's more cases. This whole opioid epidemic is affecting probate. Many people, it's breaking up families. Single mom who may be addicted to heroin. She has children, young children. She can't take care of them. Family member, a grandparent may be raising the children. Foster, whatever the situation, but there becomes now they want an adoption. They want to legally have the guardianship necessary. Sometimes in an emergency situation because the mom may be in detox or may be in jail. So what does those kids? So boom, they're probate. We need so to handle these types of cases. So it's not just impacting.
And they're not easy.
Exactly, it's family court, family situations, and the opioid epidemic is not just affecting law enforcement or our health care. It even affects.
But sometimes we make wrong decisions.
Absolutely.
Or the wrong things get.
Absolutely. And one bad decision can lead to an overdose, an addiction, whatever the case may be. But then the safety net is the state creating probate to help with fixing these things so at least the children can be taken care of. So, and say on the other side,
some strong leaders.
We do, and I know the present facility even is very old. The courthouse I'm speaking of now in Alfred. You may have
rode by there the other day, and I looked at it.
You can imagine,
It's been there how long?
I want to say 1800s, and then it added on, but they're to the point of no more additions being feasible because it's so old.
I bet we have a lot more inmates too.
And they're down the street at the Alfred jail, but they have to bring them for their arraignment. You see the buses come over and so forth, but you may have seen in the news that voters of York County will see that they're actively looking at building a new courthouse, 30, 40 million, maybe more, 50, 60. I've seen different numbers.
Have they decided where it's going to be?
That's the big question. I guess they got it narrowed down to 6 or 7 sites, some in Alfred still, some in Biddeford, down on corner of Route 1 and the spur that the city bought a few years ago. It used to be Pate Motors. I don't know if there's 10 acres there or something that they could build on. It would be.
Wouldn't it be wise to build someplace where you wouldn't have to travel
to
move them too far?
And they're trying to stay close. Alfred was chosen because it's geographically the center of the county if you look at the map. But Biddeford might make the cut because it's close to Route 1 and close to the turnpike, whereas some of, Sanford also is centrally located, but it's hard to, you got to either do 111 or come up over from Wells. It's not on Route 1 and it's not on the turnpike, so that makes it more difficult. But Judicial has gotten approval. I know Judge Netto, the current probate judge, Senator Linda Valentino have been on the committee that now is planning citing, as well as the justices from the Supreme Court committee and so forth. So that'll be moving forward, and they've got the legislature's support that they need to build something that will last another 100 years. And that's because now the facilities for all the county departments are not adequate for today's day and age. County government also has the old jail building down, I think that's Route 4, if I'm not mistaken, as you're going down that way. But still need more room. You're dealing with more cases. You're dealing with district attorney. You're dealing with, your county register of deeds, and so, so many things that go on in that courthouse, including probate and your regular judicial
I think
cases.
there's more and more regulations.
I think there have been. I think we as a society sometimes, go out of bounds, and regulations are meant well to bring us back inbound, sometimes overstep, or, as I mentioned before on the gun sales thing, sometimes unintended consequences of writing a regulation. But you're right, it's difficult. People want their freedoms and their liberty, but still, as a society, we want to, in today's news, Charlotte, one of the top American cities to live in every year on the, top 10 of the surveys and so forth, they're having riots in the streets, with
And so many people.
Exactly.
But we don't know who these people are, where they come from.
Exactly.
They're
exactly.
the people that
And,
live there.
With law enforcement, these days I have a nephew who's a policeman in Saco, has been for many years, and I tip my cap every day and think of, every day, every stop, he's putting his life on the line for us, because you don't know what that person, do they have a weapon? Are they high on
Scary.
crack or PCP or heroin or something? They're going to pull a weapon? Are they going to, harm you, harm somebody else? So answering a simple domestic dispute, something can happen. So you never know. It's not like it even was 5 or 10 years ago. And, it's too bad that our society has changed in these ways, but it has. So probate, family court becomes more important because these are issues. The guardianships, we mentioned young people in the opioid crisis, but also people that are going through Alzheimer's and caring for their elderly relatives, and what do they do? What kind of care? Can they keep them at home? Do they have to and then sometimes families disagree on what should happen. Mm-hmm. And again, that's where probate comes in. They would come to probate, they'd be scheduled with the judge, and the judge would listen to both sides of the cases, especially if there's money involved, and somebody has to be appointed guardianship, and where the elderly person, what kind of care they get. But these are important life decisions that have to be made. And again, with his 8 days a month, and Judge Netto has been staunch in his last several years of trying to fight for more court dates to try to eliminate the backlog. And it's been difficult because the county commissioners have fought him over a budgetary numbers game, if you will, that they're only willing to pay for presently 8 court dates. So hopefully, if elected register, we can get the job done more efficiently and fight for the service that the residents of York County expect in their probate system, and be it whether Judge Netto is reelected or one of his opponents come in, that they get adequate number of days funded to meet the caseload. York and Cumberland County presently have the two largest caseloads, which makes sense. We have the two largest populations in the state, so you can't take care of people and do it efficiently and do it on the cheap. And I'm all for lower taxes and so forth, but when people's children, when people's elderly are involved, their estates and so forth, these are serious matters that need to be dealt with in a prompt fashion. And it's not fair to say to somebody they need help to say, well, we're scheduling 2 or 3 months out. Now, if you're an emergency, granted, you can jump the line. We'll get you in, soon to see the judge. But if you're always jumping the line in emergency, is that fair to everybody else's schedule? Because then you're making calls to them and saying, now your slot is being pushed back because we just had to take 2 or 3 emergency cases. So that's kind of, as a department head, that I'll be working with, and I make this pledge now to the voters of York County. That's going to be one of my top priorities, to make sure next year's budget has already been adopted and approved. It's going to be difficult to make changes, but as we move forward during the 4-year cycle and have the opportunity to revisit these budgets on an annual basis, that it's getting the funding that it deserves and the judge time that it deserves to hear the cases.
It's a lot to think about.
It is. It's an
You're
important,
dealing with people.
and their lives.
Yeah.
Their lives at a time in their life that everything's up in the air.
I may say, when I come to the end of life today, I may say one thing, but we don't know how I'm really going to be.
Exactly.
Some family members may think, well, she's well enough to live more.
Or,
And my words may say no.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Or were you of sound mind and body when you made this will, and you didn't have these grandchildren, spelled out?
Well, even in my case, like I told you, Alec's been gone 16 years.
Mm-hmm.
When I made out my will, some of them were born,
Sure.
and some of them were 12, so you add, today they may be married, they're adults and have children.
So they're right.
I would look at them different in my will.
Sure. So time to update.
Yeah,
To update.
I am.
Take a
Yeah.
new visit.
It's a lot to think about.
A lot to think about, and you know what?
And you want to be honest.
And fair to everybody.
Yeah.
And doing it now saves angst or maybe a visit to probate court down the road for them, because that becomes more difficult because there becomes friction in the family. No, Zaffy meant this. No, Zaffy would have wanted it. Well, we don't know if you
don't
didn't
know.
say. And all
I
they
don't
can,
know how I felt that day when I said it.
Exactly. So they would have to come, present their cases to the judge, and then the judge. So you want to try to avoid that kind of friction in a family, because sometimes those wounds are never healed, especially if there's
I know.
money involved. That, to me, biggest thing that breaks up families that should be loving each other, that can't speak to each other because...
Okay, if you have your will, and it won't go, most likely it won't go to probate.
Most are routine. They're all spelled out. You didn't owe any money. It's pretty cut and dry, and they just
So whatever's
go
there,
through.
it's going to be.
It's going to be. It's only those ones that are contested that somebody says, well, wait a minute, that's not right. Or you never did one to begin with. You'd be shocked to know. And, some of those, if there was really nothing of an estate, maybe somebody had an old car or something. But even then, you should say who you'd like that car to go to, or, whatever it may be.
And someone's going to say, why did he get the car and I didn't?
So, yeah.
Even if it's old.
Exactly. So you get some of those that come to probate that, if they don't have will, and the judge has got to try to figure to sort it out. But it takes time, it takes Many come without attorneys, some hire attorneys, and it's what we're there for, but it's can be avoided in
And you
many
feel
cases.
you'd enjoy this, and you really
I think
have
so.
a passion for it.
Yeah, I've always liked serving people and helping in this capacity, and I think it's an exciting time for probate and the court in general, because as I mentioned, building a new building, if that's approved and they find a site, I think it's going to be fast-tracked that in the 4-year term, if I'm elected, I would actually see them break ground and move forward and
Be a part of it.
be a part of the next 100 years, if you will, and also if there are changes made in probate, there's been, because of the caseloads in York and Cumberland County, some talk of maybe it's time for Maine as a state to look at how we do this and elect our probate judges and registers, and maybe they should fall under the judiciary like other judges. In many states, probate or is called family court, and they're given even things like divorces, and they're part of the regular judiciary. When we were established as a state in 1820, Maine said no, and these are going to be county officials that you elect along with your district attorney and your county sheriff and so forth. But maybe here in almost 2020, 200 years later, that maybe there would be some sense into saying the county could have input, especially in the judge position, go to state body, and the state judiciary would appoint a probate judge and give them funding, give them responsibility on a state level instead of it coming from the county level. But that is to be seen. But I think if I'm on the inside working it and learning more, I'll be able to weigh in on that argument about maybe, and it would take a constitutional amendment and so forth to change that, but it's something that if people agree upon could be done. The difficulty is the other.
That's a lot to comprehend.
It is. And the other counties, many of them are working fine because they have much smaller caseload. The judge may only come in three times a month. If you're Somerset or some of the smaller counties. So maybe it's working there, but still, they could get divorce cases out of their hair, make it a true family court, and then with the responsibilities of probate, I think under the judiciary, it may be something worth looking at. But that's a long-term stretch, a plan to.
Well, you have to look ahead.
I think so. Excuse me. And just because something was set up one way in 1820 doesn't mean that 200 years later it's still the best way. Because people, when I talk, we elect those.
Look at the changes.
Exactly. Well,
Can't even keep up with the changes.
and back then, Maine was a rural state. You didn't have a lot of the things going on that you do now. So it's different, and we can take the lead from other states that have had the same issues and have changed it and become an actual family court, and that's what they call it, as opposed to probate.
There's a lot to it.
Exactly.
Well, I think our time is about up.
Okay.
Is there anything special you'd like to say?
Just thank you for this opportunity, and thanks also to the voters here of York County, and I appreciate their consideration. And if they want to learn more about me or see some videos or maybe print out this ballot question sheet, the Facebook page is...
I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. Elect Alan Sicard, York County Register of Probate.
I'll have time to think a little more about everything, although I pay attention anyway.
You research, absolutely. And that's good. You're an informed voter when you go in.
Well, thank you for coming. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
And it's nice visiting with you.
Absolutely.
Say hello to everybody at home.
Will do.
Well, folks, thank you for listening and being with us. he gave us a lot to think about, me anyway, because I don't know too much about some probate, and I'm really interested in it. And there's a million things I could mention, but there's one thing I'm going to say, and it doesn't have anything to do with this. I have a friend who watched the show at church, and she told me, and she looked at me and she said, Zaffy, and that's what I always do. I'm always shaking my head yes. So I don't think I did that today, a little bit. But she said, Zaffy, making fun of me, and I appreciated that. Well, thank you again. Is there anything you'd like to say?
They're watching you out there. That's good. She
Yeah,
was paying
that's good.
attention.
That's good. Thank you again for being with us. See you next week. Love, Zaffy.